All right. Good evening. Welcome to the June 6th legislative session. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Trustee Bazemore?
Present.
Trustee Herrera?
Present.
Trustee Codman?
Present.
Mayor Garrity?
Present.
We'll begin this evening with a public hearing in the matter of Local Law 3, titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 62, Affordable Housing of the Village of Ossining Code. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the public hearing?
Mayor, may I just make an introductory?
Please do.
remarks? Oh, I think I have two here, so I'm in stereo. First, folks, just the importance of the public hearing that we are holding tonight. It has two main roles. First is to ensure that the public body or agency charged with taking action on a particular issue is fully aware of the public sentiment about the proposed action. And it's also to give the public an opportunity to voice their concerns, opposition, or support for the proposed action, and to bolster the public's confidence in the public body's decision. Now, that compares to a meeting where you are allowed to attend but not necessarily allowed to speak. You are, in fact, invited to speak tonight at this public hearing. The important to note is this section of the meeting, it will be the public hearing regarding the local law for affordable housing. So if you are here to address any other topics, those can be addressed at the end of the meeting, if you want to do just a general statements, or if you're here to talk about any of the other resolutions that are before the board, you will be given an opportunity at the appropriate time to make those statements. But for this public hearing, it relates to local law number 3. Given the number of folks that we have in the audience tonight, what we're going to do is to, each person will be afforded 4 minutes to make their presentation to the board. We would ask that you just make a presentation and not necessarily ask questions of the board for the board to answer. This will all be recorded, so we'll all be able to watch and to see what goes on. Importantly, it is anticipated that this meeting will be kept open at least until the meeting on the 20th of June, 2 weeks from tonight. So if you don't all get a chance to speak tonight, although everyone will have the opportunity, but you have something else to say at another time, you will have that opportunity. You also may address any written comments to the Board of Trustees, any of the individual board members, or to any of the members of the staff with regard to this. And all of our email addresses are on the village's website. With that, and we'll be able to start. What I would like to just do is read a brief statement from Trustee Levin, who is not here this evening. And she asked me to say the following to all you folks and all those folks who are watching. Today's public conversation on housing is very important to me, as it is to all my colleagues on the board. I am sorry I cannot join you in person, as I am visiting family out of the country this week. I will be viewing the video so that I can better understand the views and input from the members of the Ossining community, which this board serves. I look forward to more public comments and hearings on this very significant issue in the future. For now, I invite any member of the Ossining community to reach out to me directly to express your views, comments, concerns, or questions regarding housing. I can be reached at Levin, L-E-V-I-N, at villageofossining.org. And with that, the folks, you can start to come up and make your speeches if you wish. And we would just ask that you give your name and your address. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Laura Flores, and I live at 9 Edgewood Road, Ossining, New York. Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Flores, and I have been part of the Ossining School District for 14 years. I'm an Ossining High School graduate, and now I study at the Manhattan College in the Bronx. I'm the daughter of Maria and Felix Flores, who are two very active leaders in our community. When we first moved here from the Bronx, we needed to find an affordable place to live in Ossining, and sadly, that wasn't an easy task. We ended up living in a two-family home that was split into 2 individual apartments. Fortunately, we were able to find a house that was affordable to us, but sadly, not everyone has that chance. Many families in our community struggle day by day to be able to keep up with their current payments due to the rents being raised to insanely high prices. This Affordable Housing Act that is being proposed is definitely going to bring some positive changes to our community, but we can't stop here. We need to continue the work. This would involve passing the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. Passing a policy like this would not hurt us in any way. Ossining is such a special place because it's filled with diversity of all different kinds, such as socioeconomic status, race, sexual orientation, and etc. We should be celebrating this diversity and at the same time protecting it by enacting this new affordable housing policy and the Emergency Tenant Protection Act as soon as possible. Thank you.
Ms. Flores.
Good evening, Mayor Garrity, trustees, and everyone else. My name is Sheila Vereen Massengale. I am a CVH member, leader, a voter, and a member of Star Bethlehem Baptist Church. I have been a resident in the village of Ossining for the past 5 years. I came to Ossining through an emergency housing program and fell in love with this community. I had to fight hard to find a place to call home here. I'd like to share with you a bit about my story. I work 2 part-time jobs and am a single mother with a teenage daughter who lives with me. When I applied for the affordable housing program at Harbor Square, I was told that I would probably be a good candidate for housing there and had a good chance to get in. A week later, I got a note in the mail that said, insufficient income. In order to get a so-called affordable apartment at Harbor Square, I would have had to be making over $71,000 a year. 34% of families in Ossining make less than $50,000 per year. My family is one of those families. We want to be included in the development that comes into our community. I urge you to adopt the affordable housing policy that was recommended in the Housing Needs Assessment. We think this is a good step forward, but it doesn't go far enough. It will likely only result in a handful of affordable units, and even though this policy is better than what we currently have, many people still won't qualify. Therefore, I further urge you to adopt the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. This is a tool in your tool belt that you can use to stabilize rents for 1,000 of residents and protect people from unjust evictions. Our community is changing, and we want to be a part of it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kayla Venuti, and I've been a part of the Ossining School District for 12 years. I am a part of Community Voices Heard organization in Ossining, and I'm a senior at Ossining High School. My family and I are lucky enough to own our house, but I have many friends who are not in the same position that we are. There are people who are being taken advantage of by people in power. This affordable housing policy is definitely a step in the right direction, however, it's just not enough. The existing policy requires new developments to be 10% affordable for people making less than 80% of the Westchester average median income. This new policy will increase the developments to be 20% affordable for those making less than 60% of the average median income for Westchester. This is a good step forward, but we need to do more for our fellow Ossining residents. In addition to this affordable housing policy, we must enact the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. ETPA will stop landlords from raising rent prices by a certain amount at a given time and protect our neighbors from retaliatory eviction. This policy will help so many people from being exploited and will do no harm to our taxes. This policy we are working for will help people who are from a lower socioeconomic status. We as a community strive to keep our population diverse in gender, race, and economic status. What makes our town special is its diversity and acceptance. We have to do the most we can for people who are vital members of this community. Even though I myself am not facing the same fears, I can empathize and understand with their situations. I could see myself one day moving back to Ossining, but with the extreme rent prices, that possibility could be slipping away. Help us make Ossining a safe and affordable place for everyone and their families by enacting this new affordable housing policy and the Emergency Tenant Protection Act as soon as possible. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees, staff, and community. First, I want to say how wonderful it is to live in a community where people care so much about each other. And even there are both sides of this issue, but everybody involved on both sides of this issue is here because they care about Ossining. And that care is what makes this community special. To that end, I support the legislation that is up for a vote tonight. I think it is important to recognize that the median income of the county is not the median income in Ossining. And I think it's a good step. But more importantly, what I think is good about it is that we're doing it in Ossining. I don't support having an outside organization, having an outside political group like the people who run the county making decisions for us. Just like what you're doing here with this legislation, all of the protections that are in the ETPA can be affected through local legislation so that this board and this community gets to make the decisions and not some strangers at the county or the state. This board is doing a great job. This legislation that you're talking about tonight is a really good step. There's lots more to do. There are bigger issues than are addressed by ETPA. The biggest is unsafe housing. The largest problem we have isn't that we don't have enough affordable housing, is that the affordable housing in Ossining is mostly single and two-family homes that have been broken up into single-room apartments. It's unsafe for the tenants, it's unsafe for our police, our fire, and our EMS, and that's what has to be addressed. This ETPA legislation doesn't do that, but I have absolute faith that this mayor and this board will enact legislation to do that. The Tenant Landlord Commission is another thing that's a really good step. Perhaps they can be charged with coming up with a standard lease designed by tenants and landlords in Ossining for the people of Ossining. And I think that's how we should move forward, not just on affordable housing, but in all things. Thank you for the hard work that you do. Thank you all for your passion. I'm proud to live here.
Thank you. Karen, before you start, I just want to say that was Bob DeRio. He lives on Hunter Street.
Thank you. Now I will
Welcome.
remember to introduce
Yes,
myself.
thank you, Karen.
Good evening. I'm Karen DeTore. I live at 5 Knollwood Drive. I'm also the director of IFCA Housing Network, and I serve on as a council person on the Ossining Town Council. I want to echo some of the comments that Mr. DeRio just made, but I also want to commend the board because IFCA has been working with the village for quite some time now on this issue, the issue of much needed affordable housing in Ossining, and we've seen a housing needs assessment completed. We are seeing the policy that's in front of us tonight be enacted, which is a recommendation of that needs assessment, and definitely needed. The issue, as others have said tonight, is this is a really, really deep and complicated issue, and the need is great. And we have a need that actually won't be served by either ETPA or the set-aside alone. Those are interventions. But I really want to speak to the need for a broader strategic approach, because right now we have lots of opportunities. There's significant dollars in Albany right now that are the governor has made a $20 billion commitment to affordable housing. Ostening's well poised to take advantage of some of these funds. But we have issues across the board when it comes to development, whether it's market rate, whether it's affordable. We also have to deal with an overcrowded school district. If we're going to achieve what we need to achieve, which will absolutely require more development of housing for people at all income levels, then we're going to have to look at this as a much bigger picture. And one of the things that we can do is working together. Hopeful, IFCO was able to bring together a group of people, including private lenders, public lenders, people from the state, planners, developers, yesterday, along with a representative of the village, and we were able to talk about what the opportunities are, what funding is available, what we can do collaboratively, and how we can bring the community get the community more involved with that discussion. And thankfully, there are a lot of opportunities in front of us that we could be taking advantage of now. But we're not going to be able to do it if we don't have a comprehensive strategy that everybody buys into. And it has to be a bigger strategy. We have to look at the bigger picture. So to that regard, I commend the board for what they're doing and how they're moving ahead on this issue. I want to make sure that we don't get mired in things that may not have quite the impact we want them to have or have unintended consequences as well. But as we look forward, there is funding for affordable housing, and not just affordable housing at 60% area median income, but affordable housing down to 30% area median income, which would greatly serve this community. There's also the opportunity to, as we're doing this, developing a strategy, taking advantage of the funding that's on the table right now, we can also look at ways to work with the state, to work with the county, to work with people in our community to advocate for the capital expansion of the school district that we need now, regardless of whether we have more development going forward. We're seeing Main Street come back for the first time in the 27 years that I've lived in Ossining, and a lot of that's because of development. So let's keep the momentum going. Let's make sure that we're looking at the bigger picture, and let's make sure that everything that we do is enhanced because it's part of a strategy that works collectively and broadly to make sure that we can enable Ossining to reach the potential that we all know it has to serve all people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Michael Spall, One Hillside Terrace in Ossining. As a 38-year resident of Ossining in the village, I came to Ossining in 1980, and I moved into two buildings which would be subject to the ETPA at this particular time. Those buildings are still there. They're still owned by the same family. Those buildings are buildings that are well maintained. They pay their insurance. They pay their taxes. They set reasonable rents, and when I was living at those particular buildings, the reasonable rent increases were also seen at that particular time. They looked at my finances. I was earning all of $10 an hour back then, and they looked at those finances, and they looked at my my work background, and they decided to let me live there. So let's fast forward for a few minutes here. After I did that, and I lived at two of these different buildings, I got married, and I decided I wanted to buy a house. So here's maybe the difference between me and some of the other people that are here this evening. Back then, you needed to have 28% of your gross income in order to get a house for your mortgage payment each individual month. So I went to Pleasantville. I would love to live in Pleasantville. And by the way, I still would love to live in Pleasantville, but I live in Ossining now. And there's a good reason for that, and I'll tell you what it is. The reason why is when I went to a Pleasantville real estate agent, they looked at 28% of my wife and my income, and they said to me, no, you can't live here in Pleasantville. You've got to live someplace else. So I went here to Ossining, found a beautiful house, which I still live in today. But, you know, they could have sent me to Peekskill. They could have sent me to Fishkill. They could have sent me to the freaking moon. But they didn't. They didn't. So I ended up here in Ossining. So the bottom line is that you do not need ETPA in order to set reasonable rents. There's a free market system that's out there with the landlords. They're setting up, they're keeping these buildings in place. There's a lot of things in this particular legislation which could cause some undue hardship. For example, there's the need to maintain these buildings to a certain standard. There's a need to make sure that the leases are reviewed by a committee. These things are already occurring already. These buildings are well maintained, they're still here. These buildings have been here for years, they're owned by respectable individuals. Let's look a little bit at the present generation. My daughter just rented a house in, an apartment in Yonkers. Why did she end up in Yonkers? Well, because she looked here in Ossining and couldn't afford to live in Ossining. She looked in Dobbs Ferry, which was close to her work. She couldn't definitely afford to live in Dobbs Ferry. So she ended up in Yonkers in a studio apartment. Does she need ETPA? No, she doesn't need ETPA. What she needs is the ability to earn more money. And she will eventually earn more money. But the bottom line is just like I had to have 28% back many years ago, she needs to have additional money too. So there really is no need for this law. Let the free market do what it's supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Nicola Kenny, 11 Edward Street. I'm a former homeowner and landlord in the village of Ossining, having moved here in 2000. For the past 12 years, though, I have rented a variety of places, from a studio in an ETPA-eligible building to rooms in house share arrangements. Needless to say, not a single location lasted very long due to rent increases and my income remaining basically the same. And every time I've had to move, the local rents have gone up considerably. Like many other local residents, I have relied on part-time, low-paying jobs, ranging from retail pharmacies to elder care gigs. I have a deep investment in this community, serving as a volunteer at the Trinity Church Food Bank, local festivals, etc., and do not want to be forced to move away. When CVH came to Ossining in 2015, I immediately joined to help others, as well as myself, in the campaign for stable homes in our diverse community. I'm standing here tonight in support of this newly proposed affordable housing policy, which is an improvement, but does not go far enough. In reality, we also need to fully pass the Emergency Tenant Protection Act this summer so that the combination adequately addresses the needs of so many long-term residents. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Zarin. I'm with the law firm Zarin Steinmetz in White Plains. I just want to echo what someone said. This is an amazing turnout, and this community should be very, very proud that they show this type of care and activism. I'm not here to condemn or disparage proposed Local Law 3. It addresses a critical, important policy of accessibility to affordable and quality housing in this country, which needs to be addressed and needs to be resolved in advance. Unfortunately, the proposal before you, most specifically the 20% set aside and the AMI, I would submit is not economically viable, is not supported by any empirical evidence or studies or data, contradicts these studies or the village's own expert studies, and I fear will begin to look like and create more acrimony and destabilization of the building of new development and affordable housing and distract from these critical goals and the energies and ideas that are here tonight and that this board has shown. First of all, there's very little support nationally or locally for 20% set-asides without subsidies, pilots, tax credits. In fact, as someone mentioned, the largest source and generation of quality affordable housing is the low-income housing tax credit. 85% of all affordable housing in this country is built with that funding source. And one of the goals and what many communities are doing are attracting those developers and builders who build specifically that type of housing. 100% good, high-quality, affordable housing using those funds and subsidies that are available both on a state and federal level. You go around the county, you'll see some of that housing built by known developers around the county. Perhaps where you have developed sites, conversion of office markets where you have infrastructure in place and alike, maybe you don't need those subsidies. but difficult sites in struggling neighborhoods, in areas where older commercial areas, outdated stormwater, on the waterfront where you have FEMA stormwater issues, flooding, and needs significant infrastructure work, you can absolutely not support a 20% mandatory and still build housing in those types of areas. 20% is just not viable. It's interesting, when you looked at your own studies, expert study, they had a number of strategies for the building of affordable housing. I believe that the set-aside, this proposal was fifth, and the study specifically said that this paper did not arbitrarily select these in order as fifth. They should be implemented in the order that was laid out, the policy strategies. And one of the things they said, the revision of the village's affordable housing policy should be done in lockstep with the elimination of regulatory barriers to housing development and the advancement of sustainable transportation policies. I know you're all probably familiar with SECRA and the hard look requirements. Again, there's been very little that I've seen impact analysis of how would this work and how would these requirements work. Hard data, looking at pro formas and how pro formas factor construction costs, sales prices, mortgage requirements, AMI, bedrooms, school children generation to the school district, and tax consequences to the overall district.
Mr. Zarin, I have to say thank you very much. If you have written comments, could you please submit them to the clerk?
Okay, if I could just finish.
Also, who's your client?
My client is Plateau.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just have one more minute?
No, I'm sorry. There's a number of people here. We have to be fair and allow everyone the same amount of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate your comments.
Good evening. My name is Jose Sosa, and I live at 25 State Street, right behind you. So I would like to present tonight my living experience with this landlord, and also why we advocate in the entire premises this type of regulation or code in our village. I moved from the Bronx in 2014, and I still commute to the city because I am a bioanalyst in Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. When I applied for the 25 State Street project, it was an affordable project, affordable housing project, and on the first year that I renewed my lease, they increased it $5, which was great. The second year, they increased it less than 3%, which is still great. But this year, still have not signed it yet because the increase is around 10 to 12%. And how many of you who are here tonight are from 25 State Street? So we are here to let you know that there is, and there should be some type of regulation, there should be some type of overseeing these landlords from increasing these leases in these proportions, because we're going to be hurting. We don't know exactly what is it that they're going to do next year. If this year is 10 to 18%, how about next year? It's going to be 20, it's going to be 10.
Mr. Sosa, I'm sorry. Please, I don't mean to cut off your time.
No, go ahead. I'm
no,
done.
I don't want to use. Okay.
And I appreciate your office, Mayor, and also Stuart, who is handling this issue.
Right.
I brought it up because if I didn't, nobody would have done it.
Thank you for bringing it up. I will say we're a little bit off topic now because this is a public hearing for Local Law 3, but since you've brought it up, I do just want to clarify for folks at home and folks who are listening, 25 State Street is an existing building. It was a county project. We are aware of the proposed rent increase, and perhaps Corporation Counsel can comment on it.
And it's as I advised Mr. Sosa, it's been brought to the attention of Commissioner Drummond of the Planning Department, and I know they are looking into it because they have a 50-year affordable agreement with the developer. So it's really a county-operated system, and I know that they are in the process of looking at that specifically with regard to the rent increases in that building.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I'll just say thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Sosa, and it is a housing-related topic that you brought up, but I would ask that everyone, when you make your comments, I didn't cut you off because I did want to make sure that that
understand.
was addressed, but, since it was introduced, but let's please contain our comments to being comments related to local law number 3, which is the proposed update to the affordable housing policy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sosa, and I'm sure there's others who would like to comment now. She was just turning in paper. There's an open mic.
Hello, hi.
Welcome.
My name is Susan Vorsanger. I have lived in Ossining for 10 years at 33 Iroquois Road. I would like to thank the board members for your attention to the issue of affordable housing in Ossining and to express my support for the proposal you're considering to expand the percentage of housing units that must be affordable in new developments that come into our community. I think this is an important step towards making sure that the benefits from new developments are shared widely and that people who work in Ossining at all income levels will be able to continue to live here in the future. I also think that we need to make sure our current housing remains affordable, and I do hope that if the vacancy study determines that our community is eligible for ETPA, the board will adopt it. Before I became a homeowner, I lived in a apartment that was rent stabilized, and I knew that if I paid my rent, I didn't have to worry about getting an unexpected letter in the mail that my rent was going to go up dramatically beyond what I could afford. And I believe that our neighbors in Ossining who are renting now deserve to have that same peace of mind. I know it's a complicated issue, and maybe we also need to do things like increase the supply of affordable housing, and hopefully the proposal that's before you this evening will be one part of that process to increase affordable housing for everyone, whether they're covered by ETPA or not. But one of the reasons I'm so grateful to live in Ossining is the opportunity to raise my children in a community that is diverse and that it's economically integrated. And I'm glad the board is working to make sure this continues to be the case in the future, because I believe that all of us, renters and homeowners, benefit when more of our neighbors are secure in their housing. So thank you for your attention to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is Cynthia Smith. I live at 25 State Street, and I work for HRA. It started out as affordable housing because city workers get 5% of whatever's built that's stated as affordable. As the tenant said before, with the increase, it's not affordable, and we're not getting any answers from management. I know you didn't want us to talk about it, but I just wanted to put it out there again. I was on a board with Harbor Square as being an HRA worker with the Union 371. When I went there to fill out the application with one of the tenants here, I know I sound a little nervous, sorry. We were turned away. I filled out the application. They said that the credit score was too low, which at that time it was 670. My salary was $78,000 at that time. So when they came out with affordable housing, I went to Ithaca and filled out the application. Then I was told that I made too much. So I'm kind of confused when they saying affordable, what do they mean by that? So one said that my credit score was too low, which is supposed to be 650, and my score was 670. Then I went back again with the affordable housing, which is 5% for city and state workers, and I was turned away because they said my salary was too much. So I'm kind of confused. So.
I can't speak to a specific instance right now. There certainly are, there are thresholds that are established, but I don't think this isn't the form.
If they say you could come at this point, and then they turn you away, and then you come with the salary, and they still turn you away.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of tenants here that I'm speaking for with that issue. And the same thing for the Avalon. Oh, and another thing I wanted to add it. Harbor Square started out with 20 affordable apartments in the beginning. I would say the second week that we were going back for interviews, they said they only had 10 because they made a deal with the development across the street from 25 State Street, but then the people can't even get in that development.
Well, there's some misinformation that may have been provided to you at the time. There's 19 units at Harbor Square, and that is reflective of the current 10% set aside, and there's 188 units total. I'm not sure why anybody would have said 10, because that wouldn't be accurate.
Because it started out as 20. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. We confused because at 25 State Street we started out affordable. And now we're getting a double increase, and nobody's helping us or even answering our phone calls with that.
Yeah.
Ms. Smith, as I indicated to Mr. Sosa, I have spoken with the Commissioner of Planning. This is a Westchester County issue.
Okay.
It's not a village issue, unfortunately. And I spoke with the Commissioner last week. She specifically has this as one of the buildings she is checking on because it's the county that has the agreement with the owner of 25 State Street. It is a 50-year agreement to keep it affordable. So my suggestion, and I gave the information to Mr. Sosa, I gave him the contact number for Commissioner Drummond's office. You are welcome to call that office up and follow up, because that building is specifically operated through the county and with that developer.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And so to clarify for folks, 25 State Street, as has been stated, is a county initiative that was built with a different structure than what we're considering here with the affordable housing policy. This affordable housing policy is an update to our existing one, which would be relevant to any new construction that may come to the village going forward from the time that the policy is in place. And it would mean that in the example of Harbor Square, right now you have a 10% set aside. There were 188 units. 10% of them were set aside to be part of the affordable housing program. The folks who are eligible for it with our existing policy would need to be at an income level that is reflective of up to 80% of the area median income for Westchester, and whether or not that is the best amount or not, that's really what we're discussing. Should we have more units in a new building that's built to be set aside to be part of the Village Affordable Housing Program? And what should the income level be? 80% area median income is, for many people, too high. And there are many people in our community at the 60% area median income who are rent burdened. And that is a population that we are looking to consider. How can we provide more housing to folks who are really, we find a large percentage of our community that is rent burdened tends to be at the 60% area median income, much more so than at the 80% area median income. I believe that my colleagues on the board share that opinion, and that's why we're sitting here tonight talking about this affordable housing program, but it is not relevant to 25 State Street in particular. More comments, please, if you want to come up and speak.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees.
Marlene Cheatham.
Staff, my name is Marlene Cheatham, and I live, I probably have been here since I was born, so that is a long time in the village of Ossining. And growing up in this community, I've seen changes, but more importantly, sitting on that board, we started the process of enacting those changes that you're talking about today. And I think that, you know, coming here to address where we've come from and where we are now and where we're going, that this is just a step in the process. And I'm glad to see this board actually looking at, you know, Ossining was in the forefront, as some of my fellow trustees in the room know, was in the forefront of looking at affordable housing and affordable housing set-asides many years ago, a few years ago, and that started the ball rolling for some other communities because we were able to put it out there. Was it enough? We knew it wasn't enough when we started it, but we also knew that going forward, other boards would look at it, people would look at it, and they would be able to make the adjustments and things needed in order to get us to a place where we're looking at what really works for the village of Ossining. And I believe that this piece that you're looking at today, that this local law number 3 that you're looking at today is another piece of the puzzle. Is it enough? Maybe not. But for right now, I think that this board has looked at the 60%, it looks at the set aside, it looks at what we're having, it looks at what we have currently, but it also looks at what is coming in the future. If you look at development, and none of the development that is on the books currently will be able to have, they'll be looking at the law as it stands today, not as it stands once this, or if this vote goes through, but it's anything in the future. So you're looking at the future, and if we're looking at the future, then we're actually looking at where Ossining is going. I'm confident that the public understands that 60% is better than 80%, but there are still people struggling. There are still people looking for places to live. There are still homeless in Ossining. There are still people who live on the street. There are still people who need a roof over their head. There are still people who live in substandard housing. This is just a piece of the puzzle, and if we start this piece of the puzzle, if we work together to get this piece of the puzzle together, then we can look at other things. And if we're looking at other things, then we're looking at our own local laws, we're looking at being a charter village, we're looking at what the village already has in place, we're looking at our landlord-tenant council, we're looking at our own legislation, and moving forward, we can actually do what we set out to do, which was make this place the best place that it can be in the village of Ossining, the town of Ossining, Westchester County, the state of New York, and all of the United States. So Ossining will always be in the forefront. I believe that we can do this. I believe that we can move forward. And if nothing else, I believe that this is the best thing that Ossining could do.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good evening.
My name is Peter Johnson. I live on Old Albany Post Road. I was born in this town. My grandparents were born here. So my great-grandparents were here. Growing up, I had a lot of friends in the area. Most of them could not afford to buy houses here. They moved out of the area. It's expensive. I'm a landlord also, and I've been a renter as well. I've found that the landlords I've dealt with have been very reasonable. I mean, they have to deal with the expenses they have. Like I just heard now that our taxes are going up again. They're going up. We can't deduct them the same way since Trump's new legislation. We're faced with this, and as a landlord, I mean, if this ETPA passes, we'll grieve our rents. Our rents will go down, but regular working middle-class people's rent will go up. That's absolutely going to happen. I think even the rent increase now is probably reflective of this ETPA coming. It's definitely a terrible thing, at least from my perspective. It's not that, I'm kind of just getting by with these properties. They're not making any huge profit. And, if something like a roof goes, it's really expensive. That's why my friends don't live here. They can't afford to buy real estate here. The cost of real estate is really expensive. That's not going to change if you limit what a landlord can charge as a rent. And a landlord is going to be forced to raise rent. Their taxes keep going up. It's just the way it is, or else they'll be out of business. I really think that there are a lot of people that depend on rents to survive. People that maybe they saved their whole life and bought a house, and they're able to rent it out, and they expect that's part of their retirement. I don't know if people would be willing to give up their 401ks for other people. I don't think so. I don't think it's fair to ask that. And I think ETPA will be a disaster if it goes through. I mean, I have to say, I just had a tenant recently that attacked another tenant with a machete. Like, if you're a landlord, you have to be able to manage your building. You have to be able to remove tenants that are troublesome. I have another one too. He's gotten in fights. Now he's on his third person. He got the first one to leave. He was fighting with another tenant, and I said to him, if you keep fighting with this guy, you already got one guy to leave. I'm going to make you move. He stopped fighting with that guy. That guy moved out. Another one went in, and he started fighting with him. And now I've asked him to leave. I don't want a board to tell me who I can ask to leave. No board knows what's right.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I would like to say, and many of the folks who have spoken, even when you have spoken about affordable housing, you have also been speaking about ETPA. and staying under the 4-minute mark. I understand housing is a complex issue. There are many, many tools that need to be implemented to effectively address it. I would ask that we really try and drill down our comments to the affordable housing policy that is up for discussion. So if you have comments about the affordable housing policy, that's proposed local law number 3, could you please curtail your comments to that? Because as you can see, we still have a room full of people. And I appreciate that people are not running over the 4-minute mark, but if we could keep it as far under 4 minutes, because you're just talking about local law number 3, that would be really helpful. At the end of the meeting, you have 3 minutes to discuss any topic of general interest, and if you'd like to comment specifically on ETPA or any other housing policy, please do so at that time.
Good afternoon or evening. My name is Andrew Bazemore. I'm not going to be comfortable unless I say something. We're talking about affordable housing, and I hear development, supposedly some 10% are fair. How about building affordable housing in Ossining? If the developers don't agree with the circumstances to build here, then we don't allow them to build here. If they're going to come in and prey on the people that's here and force us out. Amina's 4. I intend on her going to Ossining school system. I don't want to have to move to Yonkers or Mount Vernon or somewhere else with the high crime rate because it's safe in Ossining. So the plan is hopefully if we build affordable housing, if you regulate, if this is the board that makes the decisions, then it's incumbent on you as a board to make the decisions to determine who is going to build here to make sure that the people of Ossining can stay here. All right? Ain't nothing else I can say.
Good evening. Manuel Quesada, 242 Spring Street. Going to stick with the local law number 3 topic. You know, part of the job of village board is to inform the people and to give the right information to the community within itself. Yesterday it was brought out to my attention that one of the trustees put up a post where it was misleading the public, where he said pretty much he was invited to this meeting, to come to this meeting because a policy of 20% set aside was part of the topic. The issue that I'm having is, he said this could create 2-bedroom apartment units to be $1,667. If this policy goes through, if the current policy that we have 10% set aside stays the way it is, that unit, the 2-bedroom unit, will be at $2,000. My understanding is the village does not create policies in regards to rent regulation. I think what the trustee was referring to is the Westchester County Area Medium that I have here, 2018 policy. The 2-bedroom apartment, if you go to the medium rate, which is pretty much what he had coded in here, which is pretty much is 117, which I'm talking about $100,000 for a 4-person household, which is 100%. We right now, our current policy is 80%, as far as I know. If we go with the new policy, we go down to 60%, 50%, and I believe is at 35% or 45% in there. The point of this whole thing is this trustee is masking the information at hand. The trustee referred to the program here that I have that is a 2-bedroom apartment, which is the $1,600. There's nowhere in this policy that is a 2-bedroom apartment, $2,000. So to me is, why is one of the board members giving misinformation to the public? Why is this happening? If you guys are going to make a policy, that policy should be transparency. Stop looking through a window and open the door for the public and the community to actually see what is going on. So if you're going to pass something, please make sure you give the correct information to the public so we can voice our opinions and put weight into what happens to that. It's not just you sitting in those chairs, it's you sitting in those chairs and representing our community.
Okay? So please go back, rephrase of what was said, put the correct information in your post, and we can move on with this information. So thank you.
So, Mr. Quesada, just want to, Mr. Quesada, no, you can, I mean, you can get it when you go home. So at $117,000, $100 at 80%, that comes to 11700 times 0.8. That comes to about $93,680. You divide that, or you actually multiply that by you 30% of that. A two-bedroom is actually over $2,000 because the actual AMI figures of Westchester County actually went up to $117,000. Now, those two figures that you have mentioned within the Westchester County numbers are, there's the low rent and then there's the 60% rent, right?
Correct.
And so one of them is for the 50% AMI and
it's
one
right
of them
here.
is for the 60%.
Nowhere
However-
in this part, it says
Okay.
$2,000.
Okay,
Right now, we have a 30%
we're going a little
policy.
bit down on a tangent, so wrap this up in the next two sentences, please.
So, however, if you do the mathematics, you'll find that those numbers are similar to what I stated on my post.
I did, and I checked with the county as well. So
Okay.
thank you.
And I think we'll be able to find the original source of this information, and we can all dissect the numbers as we'd like. I do just want to make a comment for folks in the room. You may have gotten a text. I know some of us have gotten texts. There's a little challenge with some of the broadcasting. The audio is being broadcast live. The video is being recorded, so it should be available for folks to be able to see tomorrow online or on television. We're just having a little bit of the connection problem tonight. So it is being recorded, but when you get home, if your family member says, I tried to watch, I could only hear it, I couldn't see it, we do know that it is being recorded. So you'll be able to watch yourselves tomorrow. Van Steen.
My name is John Van Steen. I'm a resident of Ossining. I live at 78 South Highland Avenue. 2 weeks ago, I addressed the board about having this meeting tonight. And at that time, I requested that the board delay this meeting until they had answered certain questions that had been asked to them by land use boards within this village. The planning board had asked Mr. Kahan, when he presented to them, the following questions. What hard data do you have to support a 20% set-aside? What data do you have to support that the current 10% set-aside is inadequate? While not opposed to the proposed revision, while the document is a good document, are you actually benefiting the group? What will be the benefits to the community as a whole? What will be its impact on development and developers? How successful has affordable housing been in Ossining since it was passed a few years back? Is this more appropriate as part of a comprehensive plan review? What proactive ways do we have of addressing this issue that are not covered by this legislation? Have you entertained any of them? If so, which ones and what were your conclusions? What skin does your village have in the game? Has it a public-private partnership been considered to address this issue? Should we deal with affordable housing and at the same time work to rehabilitate the existing housing stock? What data do you have to show that the current affordable housing regimen is helping rather than hurting? Had these questions been addressed or partially considered by the village board, we would not be in the position where we are tonight, where everyone is given a short chance to speak on their own personal ideas, and those that are in the community that have experience in these matters. And we have heard a number of wonderful suggestions in the from the audience tonight, but the village board has not done its homework. The village board has not looked into these issues and done an adequate examination of the repercussions. Many of the issues that you have that are before you essentially have unintended consequences that you are not examining at this point. Past studies have shown that Ossining is already an affordable community, one of the four most affordable communities in Westchester, especially those with ETPA. Past studies have shown that Ossining's apartment vacancy rate is higher than that of most other Westchester communities. especially those with ETPA. And past studies have shown that Ossining rents are stable. In the Tarrytowns, and of course it was interesting to see a flyer from a Tarrytown group coming up to an Ossining meeting. The question is, well, how well has these programs worked in Tarrytown? Well, they have far fewer areas set aside for this, and far fewer now than when the law was first passed a number of years ago. And what have we done to look into that and see why that's changed and how that's helped in that community? Are there any studies out there? Have we done anything to see how these actually work or don't work? So don't let an outside group dictate Ossining policy, and particularly don't let them dictate poor policy. You as our village board must do your due diligence. If this is truly the boldest affordable housing policy ever proposed in Westchester County, which was what was stated on that flyer, then it is much more important for you to actually do your due diligence. Show the community that you've done your homework and properly researched and objectively reported the benefits to our community of the legislation you propose. Show the community an objective financial analysis.
Thank you.
And show our community that you're responsible, and show them that you deserve their support by the work that you have done.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Van
you.
Steen.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak on local law number 3? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Joe Clark, Audubon Drive. I think you probably just heard a number of things that I might have said tonight. But I think there are a couple of things that were brought up tonight that are interesting to me. 34% of the population of the village of Ossining is under the 80% AMI for Westchester County. That's a significant amount of the population. I'm curious as to what the entire village looks like when we look at people who own houses, who rent, et cetera, to understand the economics of this proposed law. And I'm not sure that we need all of what's proposed tonight. There could be 60% adopted, but not 20%. There's been no modeling that I have seen or been made available to anybody that shows the economic impact. I also spent some time reading the recent study that was done by Dworka, who had a series of recommendations. The first of which is, before you do anything, understand what your pocketbook looks like. Understand the economics of Ossining and the impact that changes could have. Yet we've leaped to 4 or 5 of the recommendations. So there was a serial process, and I think that anybody who does planning, and particularly you who have a fiduciary responsibility to the people of this community, should be looking at and explaining to us how this is all affordable and what's that going to do to what little opportunity we have to develop. Buzz already? Anyway, so I don't need to belabor it. I think, there's certainly a dramatic case that says that there are people who deserve housing in Ossining. The question is, how do we do it, and how do we not do it by impacting people who are already here, who are struggling to pay their taxes? I think that's extremely important. When you look, and the assessor can give you data that says, while we are affordable, and people brought that up tonight, it's not necessarily we are affordable with the taxes we pay based upon the ratio of income that we have. But I think we have to keep all of this in balance as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Is there anyone else who would like to comment during the public hearing for proposed local law number 3 regarding an update to the affordable housing policy? Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing? Going once, going twice. Okay, so do we call for a motion?
Mayor, I'd ask that it be a motion to keep the public hearing open through the meeting on the 20th of June, so that on the 20th of June, if anyone else has comments, they can come at that time, and at that point, the board can entertain a motion at that point to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? about keeping the public hearing open, or about the public hearing generally, if you'd like.
So just to be clear, this is the first day of our public hearing. You will have opportunities to come back when we host it again, up to, as the Corporation Council just identified, and that means that now up till that date, you could still email, call, show up to meetings, and speak during public comment, and also during the public hearing portion. So this is just the beginning of the process, so please encourage your neighbors and residents to please come and pack our meetings for the weeks to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much for everyone who came and spoke this evening.
We need to vote.
Mayor, we just need to vote on
I
that.
know, but I'm still commenting. For everyone who came and spoke so thoughtfully and so respectfully and with a shared desire to see the best policy possible be put in place to address the housing needs of our community. Right now, we're looking at one piece of it, and there's clearly a lot of support in this room for us doing something when it comes to doing a better job with set-asides and having a more progressive policy for setting aside portions of new housing to be more accessible for people in our community. Thanks so much for your time this week. As you go home and have more conversations, if you haven't gotten a chance to read the legislation, it is on the village website. It should be linked on either today's meeting. It's certainly linked through the Corporation Council proposed legislation page on the website. If you need help finding that, just reach out to our Village Management Office at 914-941-3554, and they can help you find that if you want to look at the actual legislation that's being discussed. And then if you think of something else you'd like to tell us in 2 weeks, come back on the 20th and we'll do this all again. If there's somebody who couldn't make it here today, please invite them to come back. You can always write to us, as was said, at our email addresses. All of us get it when you write BOT@villageofossining.org, all of us sitting up here at this table. We look forward to seeing you on the 20th. Anybody else want to comment before we vote?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, thank you guys for coming. I think this is what democracy looks like. It's important that people continue to come out. Oftentimes we are here week after week, and these chairs are empty. And I know that this is, and many of us know that this is a real major issue. And I just believe that we in local government, we should set policy. We should be intentional about the kind of community we are and the kind of community we want to become. As being said, this is part of a broader approach. There are many facets of dealing with affordable housing, and this is one of them. Fact is that as of July 1st, we know that the area median income of Westchester has risen, right? So as we look at the 60% AMI, those numbers far surpass what the average family here in Ossining makes. But it's with great thought that this board and this particular board, and even some of the early boards from last year, that we've really put in a lot of thought about this policy, about how we can create affordable housing for some and really create a flexible policy so that if a developer does not want to include the set aside, that money can go towards really reaching the persons at the lower economic spectrum. And we continually need you to come out and support, talk about this. There's a narrative around there that says you can't afford to stay here, you shouldn't live here. To the core of me, I disagree with that. Everyone needs a place to stay. As a society, we cannot continue to have people pushed out further and further and further away from employment. That's not how we should operate. And we've seen, just through various studies, that we have to be more inclusive. We have to think about our zoning. So for some who say, is this too early? Shouldn't this be a part of the comprehensive plan? The reason that we decided to bring this issue up is because we are looking to go into our comprehensive plan. We need to really look at how we're developing and how we can ensure that all of us can be here. Now, listen, this is a free market society. If you want to own a mansion, you can. If you want a small house, you can have that. But if you want an apartment, you should be able to have an apartment. Everyone needs a place to stay. For me, and I think some of my colleagues share that sentiment, but everybody needs a place to stay. And even though I'm not in the White House, and I don't know what's really going on in Washington, it's important that we on a local level, we do what we can do, right? Like that we do the best that we can do because the leaders of today on the local level may be your leaders tomorrow. All right?
Madam Clerk. Oh, did you want to comment?
I don't know.
So we'll move into mayors and trustees
No, we haven't
announcements.
voted yet. We haven't
Oh,
voted
I'm
yet.
sorry.
That was all of our
We need
comments
a
from the board.
motion. We need a motion.
We motioned.
Oh,
And
do we have?
We seconded, we commented. All in favor?
Aye.
Of it. That was a vote just to keep the public hearing open until June 20th.
And I think
Okay,
that Cod-
now we have we're going into the rest of our regular legislative session.
Now we'll move into mayors and trustees announcements.
All righty. I guess we'll take a pause while folks file out of the room, because there's no chance of it being quiet. So we'll give ourselves 2 minutes for everybody to go out of the room. Back underway. Folks are just about done with their departure, although everybody is welcome to continue to stay with us for the rest of the public meeting. Madam Clerk, should we just move right
Sure,
into mayors
mayors
and
and trustees announcements.
Okay. Who would like to kick us off with announcements? Deputy Mayor Codman, please.
So, over the next 3 nights, tomorrow night and Friday and Saturday, lots of jazz at the Lodge. Tomorrow night is the Organ Groove. Starts at 7 o'clock with Paul Connors. And he's going to be with John Doty and also a lifelong friend of his playing as well, Matt Harrington. But Friday and Saturday is going to be exciting. It's the second annual Ossining Jazz Festival, a tribute to women in jazz. There'll be women jazz performers on 2 nights and 2 performances each night. And encourage you to get your tickets going to osningjazzfestival.brownpapertickets.com. Please go there, buy your tickets. You can see individual shows or you can go to the whole program. And the finale is on Sunday. Ingrid Jensen, a world-class trumpet player, is going to be doing a great workshop with some of the high school kids in jazz band, and she's going to do a master class, and they'll be doing a performance, and that'll be up at Bethany Arts Center. So great weekend of music, jazz music, here in Ossining. Thank you.
Thank you. Or Trustee Harry, you've got something?
Thank you, Mayor Garrity. So the weekend starts off very exciting. It is our 38th annual Ossining Village Fair, which is brought to us by our Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce, and that is being held on Main and Spring Street this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The opening ceremony will be on the Ossining Christopher Columbus stage, right in between Vaza Salon and Main Street Deli, and we usually have a beautiful Flag Day ceremony led by the Elks Lodge. So we encourage you to go there. According to the Chamber, what to expect this year: 170 plus vendors, a beer and wine garden, food truck zone, 3 stages, and more. You could get the full list and learn more at ossiningchamber.org. This should be an exciting day. A new addition to the day is that the First Presbyterian Church of Ossining is hosting the first ever Choir Fest. That's supposed to feature a lot of area churches, and they're encouraging residents and guests that day to bring their instruments and voices, and that's going to be held at the First Presbyterian Church in Ossining at 3 p.m. So we look forward to seeing you all there.
That's neat.
Leslie, this Friday, the Ossining Recreation will be hosting a movie called Sing. It starts at 6:30, and it's for children between kindergarten and 4 years old. No, fourth grade, so from K to 4th grade. So if you're looking for a free activity to do this Friday, please call the Recreation for more information. I believe it's this Friday at 6:30, and the movie is Sing.
Fun one. 2 things. It's June, it's Pride Month, and the Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series will be screening a film called Major. That is tomorrow. It'll be happening at the Ossining Public Library. As always, attendance is free to the public. It begins at 6:30 in the Boudar's Theater. The movie Major is about a transgender woman of color who has been a fierce advocate for LGBT rights, particularly trans rights, over a number of years. And that will be followed by a very engaging panel discussion, and the audience is a major participant in that discussion always, and I look forward to seeing many of you there. And I also wanted to comment on a program that took place this week that Debbie and I both attended, and Paul Fraioli was there as well, as was Joe Clark from our planning board, as was John Fry from our planning board. But we weren't really the stars of the show. It was a charrette that's organized as part of a program that's a partnership with IFCA and the Village to look at economic development, particularly in the Broad Avenue corridor. And this is the second charrette of this program. The first charrette was focused on inviting community organizations that are particularly located in the neighborhood we're talking about is Broad Avenue, Spring and State Street, all the way down to just north of the prison. And the one this week was focused much more on community development lenders and financial institutions and the kind of funding that is available for economic development, particularly related to affordable housing and jobs, job creation for folks that would be in our community. So it was a really enlightening and interesting conversation, and I'm very pleased with the progress and what we've been learning from the charrette. And we've been working with Pattern for Progress as the consultants that have come in and organized these charrettes, and we look forward to getting feedback from them. They're going to process all of the information that they've been gathering from these charrettes, and later this summer we'll be getting a report on that. So I don't know, Debbie, if you have more to add to it, I just wanted to let folks know that that's been happening, and it should provide us with some enlightening information that will be helpful to all the work that we're trying to do going forward when we're making this up for our downtown.
Thank you for the opportunity to just add a few comments to that.
Please.
What I really enjoyed about the both of the charrettes was the fact that we brought such a wealth of information to the table. Being able to talk to lenders for affordable housing was really important. They brought us their viewpoints from a banking perspective. And I think that it was a mix of people that actually sat around the tables to offer us some insights that we might not have been thinking about. So I really do also look forward to sharing that information with the board and other people.
I think we just transitioned into administrative announcements. Or administrative reports.
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry,
All
we're just flying through this now.
Administrative reports. So I actually have quite a bit tonight. I want to start with something that's really nice. It's a marketing piece because we were so proud of our chief for the award that he won, 40 under 40, and then there are some other accolades that our village has won. Jamie partnered with the town and came up with a marketing design, so I asked that you go and look at them. And these were done in-house. Jamie went out and was able to get some pictures, and I got a few pictures. The design was very, very inexpensive, and it was sort of a homegrown thing. But it's something that we're going to start to use when we talk about our community outside of our community. So this is something that the board had talked about wanting, is a marketing firm and to start talking about coming to Ossining. And the tagline, I'm sorry, Jamie, what was the tagline?
Ossining, where cultures meet, live, work, play, eat, shop, settle in. Ossining.
So it's very simple. But I want to thank Jamie, I want to thank Dana and the town also. So this first will appear in Westchester Magazine as a thank you to Kevin.
Westchester
and
Business Journal.
Business Journal, I'm sorry. I just think it's really nice that we've got something that we can start to build with and say to people, come into our community. So that was the first thing. The second thing I want to tell you is work has begun on the roof of 200 Main Street. So if you see trucks parked on the grass, that's what they're doing. And what we are doing is the first phase, which the board has approved the funding for, and that is to remove the old equipment off of the roof and stabilize it so that there are no water infiltrations coming in. I will tell you that we are in the process of getting bids for a design remediation of the interiors that we'll be bringing forth later. But it was really important that we stabilize that roof and stop the water from going inside it so we can secure it. So if people see the trucks or see the men on the roof, that's what they're doing. It's just phase one of that project. As you know, the last meeting I talked about this being grant season, so we did finalize our DRI grant. That was truly a community effort. There were a lot of people that added a lot of pieces to that. I see one member of our community that I badgered, but no, I'm kidding. But I think that everyone contributed to this document, and we did submit it to the state. It's the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, and sorry, it's for $10 million, so I'm a little emotional about it. But I do want to thank so many people in this community for coming together, because the information that was put into this, I did not have, but this community did, and they rallied to bring it together. So I'll regroup in a minute, but it was a big effort, and I want to say thank you. Another opportunity that our community is going to have to weigh in on grants is going to be on June 13th. We are going to be having an announcement of community development block grant funds that we are going to be applying for. So we have rejoined the Westchester County Consortium for CDBG grants funds. We will, as a community, have an opportunity to write 4 different grants for a total of $250 each. And so we have come up with some ideas, but we are looking for community input. A lot of this money will be able to be used in our low-mod neighborhoods, and I think that we'll be able to make a really big impact. Another project that we are considering is upgrades to our community center, and that is such an important feature in our community. So, mark June 13th on your calendar. Yes, did you?
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to say with the June 13th meeting, first the term low mod is probably not familiar to most folks who are listening to the meeting at home. And also the June 13th meeting, the village has the opportunity to apply for up to 4 CDBG grants, each of them up to $250,000. The meeting is for the village as well as some of the other public and nonprofit entities as prescribed by CDBG. There has to be a public meeting to allow for these proposals to be presented to the public and allow for the public to comment on them. So I think the town is going to be there as well.
The town will be there. IFCO will be there. I'm not sure if there's any other agencies that might be there that are thinking about applying, but we are inviting everyone to present their ideas to the public all at the same time. It will be held at the library starting at 7 o'clock. And so please come out, listen to what our ideas are for how we would like to spend that money, and to let us know if there are other opportunities that you think are more important than the ones that we've chosen. So we need to hear from the public on that.
And the low mod.
Low mod is a term that is used by HUD to talk about communities where the income levels are in the affordable range that we've been talking about for affordable housing. So it's our community is made up of census tracts, and those census tracts have income levels that are associated with it by the federal government, by the U.S. Census. And so we have several. That's a lot of it's in our downtown and along the waterfront. So those are great places for us to start spending some additional money. It can be used for infrastructure, so curbs and sidewalks or water lines or those kind of projects. It can also be recreational enhancements. So there's and so at the meeting we will talk about all the different things that we can spend the money on. So if you have ideas or concerns, it'd be great to hear from you so we know where to target that money. It's also we have an opportunity to apply for CFA grants. So that is also an opportunity where a lot of the state agencies all come together, and it's one application and you can talk about all the different projects that you have. So we are looking into green roofs because there's some funding that's for that, and some of the projects that we already have on the books because it's a 50-50 match. So we could potentially do more if we're able to secure the grants through the CFA process. And that's going to take us through the summer. I also, new idea, The software that we talked about for the Recreation Department on the May 23rd meeting is going to be moving forward. So I talked to the rec superintendent, and we have worked out the details for the buyout of the old program. So our intent is to install the program and train the employees in June and July, load our fall programming in August, and then launch it in September. So I'm pretty excited about that. The key feature that I find really fun about that program is that you can click on translate and it'll translate to any language pretty much. And I think that's going to be a great benefit for our community. And then you can go online and register for any programs. And so that will no longer be a barrier. So that's moving forward.
Great.
And the last thing that I want to bring up is a thank you to Craig Cooper. Hi, Craig. Thought I might wave at him. But Craig, he was able to hire a company to perform a systems breach test for us to make sure that our systems are safe and secure for what we do here at the government. And we passed with flying colors. So I'm very proud of the system that Craig has put into place, and we'll know that all of our systems are safe. That's all I have. Thank you.
Stuart Kahan, Corporation Counsel.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Appreciate it. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Evening.
First thing, today's the 74th anniversary of D-Day. So for all veterans, if there are any from World War II or from any other, just thank you. A few other things with regard to our calendar. The Zoning Board of Appeals next meeting is this coming Tuesday at 7 o'clock at the Ops Center. We've changed some of our procedures with regard to our land use boards, particularly in terms of making sure that applications are complete before they in fact get to the land use boards. There have been practices in the past where folks would show up on the evening of a meeting and present, plans, drawings, zoning worksheets, and that's not going to be the case any longer. The building inspector, the planning consultant, and I essentially look over all the files before, and that even if someone has documents filed on time, that doesn't necessarily mean they will be at the next meeting. It's just a matter of getting in the queue, but we are making sure that everything, in fact, is all done. With our planning consultant and with the building inspector, we are making sure that all those applications are right before they get to the board, so that board members can do their important function without having to ask for something or have it handed to them 3 minutes before the meeting begins. So that's pretty important. Earlier this week, I attended the meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission, and at the end of the meeting, the regent, or what we would call president of the local chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, appeared before the board because she was mentioning this is also the centennial of the armistice for World War I in November. And they want to come into Nelson Park to clean the monuments and plaques which are there. Something I did not know, which is that the 39 trees that surround Nelson Park were planted by the American Legion in honor of each of the 39 Ossining residents who died in World War I. They were planted in 1919, I believe, early 1920. American Legion was also responsible for placement of the plaques there. There's also a Civil War monument, but the woman, I believe her name is Suzanne Souza, was at the meeting, and she has already spoken with our rec superintendent, Bill Garrison, and they will be making arrangements to clean all of those plaques and monuments so that they will be ready for the centennial come November. And finally, at our work session on June 27, we're going to have a lot of things on codes and enforcement and changes and things like that for discussion. So as this board knows, and as I think the audience knows, there's been a lot of work done on code enforcement. There's more to be done, and we'll have further discussions on that on the 27th. So, hope folks are able to join us at that time for what I think will be an interesting discussion of sort of the next phase in our process. Thanks.
Thank you. Kevin Sylvester, Police Chief.
Good evening. So summertime's here. It's going to be a busy season for us. This week coming up, tomorrow and Friday, we're going to be graduating a couple of DARE classes. So tomorrow we'll be at St. Augustine's, and then on Friday we'll be at Roosevelt School. So excited to be putting some of our young people through some of that great training. Great opportunity for our officers to build relationships, get some face time with the kids. Very proud of that. Friday night, we're kicking off our Cops and Kids Sports Series with Cops and Kids Kickball. That'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. in Nelson Park. This year it's going to be, instead of hot dogs, we're going to be doing free pizza. Like I said, as always with our Cops and Kids series, that is a totally free event. So good for the little ones. We're encouraging everybody to bring your family out. It's a good time. Saturday we'll be at the Village Fair with our Dunk-A-Cop booth. I'm grateful for the volunteers from our department who are going to save me from spending the entire day in a dunk tank this year, and my children thank them as well. On that note, we'll be putting out some notices over the next couple of days for people about traffic and ideal places to park. May not be an ideal place, but some handy places and tips for that. Over the next few weekends, we'll have a couple of traffic issues, the Village Fair, and then after that, we've got the Portuguese Festival coming up. Next Thursday, we've got our first Coffee with a Cop event coming up. That's going to be at Deli Bagel Cafe, and I believe it's going to start at 9 a.m., but we'll announce that officially over the next couple of days. And the last thing I've got for today, our hot button topic for June is going to be traffic. We're hearing from our residents who are frustrated with either people that they believe are speeding in their neighborhoods or just not following the rules. So we're going to be doing some messaging over the next few weeks to let people know exactly what we're doing. We have some neighborhood meetings set up and things like that. But from me directly right now, I'm saying that I have had my staff meeting with my supervisors, and we have advised them that traffic enforcement is to be strict, which means that while we appreciate discretion as a very useful tool in law enforcement, warnings will be less frequent. Tickets will be issued. It's become necessary in order to prevent people from driving in a dangerous manner and causing accidents to go up over the last few months. So, hate to end on a down note, but we'll encourage people to come out to our fun stuff, and while you're on your way there, drive carefully so that you don't get pulled over by one of our officers. But traffic is a hot issue right now, and as much as that's a tough message to send, I think it's important for people to understand that this is coming from not only empirical data that shows that our accidents are up over the last few months and that something needs to be done, but also a loud cry from the community that that's what they want to see in their neighborhoods, because people are interested in their children being able to play safely in their neighborhoods on sidewalks and in areas where sidewalks don't exist. So that's our part in that mission, and we're going to do everything we can to make people safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move into organization announcements. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on the organization announcements?
Yes. Welcome.
Not to compete with anybody else, but this Friday from 6 to 8:30, we're going to have a parent conference at Parker School. We're going to have Theater O having 25-30 minutes of theater movements. It's for parents and children. Then we move into dinner, and then we have about an hour of learning. And the main topic this time is going to be the Austining Basics, which is a great movement that we're throwing out throughout the whole town and village just to promote literacy and prepare our children for the summer. So I hope everybody who is listening this message could come along. We just let me know so I can prepare for the food and the babysitting. It's all free. We just need you there. I know Chief Sylvester has great outdoor entertainment. It's okay if you go there. We won't be upset as long as you go to one or the other place. En español, rapidito, hay una conferencia para padres este viernes desde las 6 hasta las 8:30. El tema va a ser los básicos de Austining. Tenemos el Teatro O, que nos viene a enseñar movimientos de teatro por media hora. Después todos invitados a tomar cena y después una hora de aprendizaje, y espero que todos puedan venir. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Actually, I didn't mean to do this, but since you asked, the Office of the Village Historian would like to make an announcement on Saturday. Miguel Hernandez has traditionally done his Holy Austining tour of churches in downtown. He asked me to take his place this year, and so I would just like to let people know that we're going to start at 1 o'clock on Saturday, rain or shine. It's the same day as the Village Fair, but it's not really connected to it. So if the Village Fair, it's bumped for rain or whatever, we're still doing our Holy Austining. I just wanted to I say that. And there's going to be a shuttle bus, and we'll be inside most of the time, so if it rains. So at 1 o'clock, we're meeting at Calvary Baptist downtown, and then we'll be taking a shuttle up to Trinity, and then over to the First Presbyterian. And it's exciting because Calvary Baptist is the oldest church structure in the village, completed in 1836, I believe, of Sing Sing marble. And I don't think it's been on this tour before. So it is really a unique structure, my favorite in the village. So it's a good chance to get in there. Trinity has astonishing interior, stained glass windows, Tiffany, Gorham. It's spectacular. And the Presbyterian, the First Presbyterian, has also been spectacularly restored, and is also worth a visit. They're all 19th century churches. And afterwards, at 3 o'clock, which is when the tour ends at the First Presbyterian, there will be Choir Fest after. So that is another reason to come and to stay and enjoy Choir Fest. I certainly intend to. So I just wanted to let people know that. So please, just show up. It's free, and we'll have a good time.
Thank you very much. That works very well with the Village Fair, actually.
Okay, so now we'll move into Village Board resolutions. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on any of the resolutions this evening? No, so we'll move into our Village Board resolutions. Approval of minutes, May 16, 2018. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the May 16, 2018 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter B, approval of minutes of May 23, 2018. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the May 23rd, 2018 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So this, just to clarify for folks, that we have a lot of minutes this week because the minutes on the 23rd, it was a special session that we held prior to our work session, and there was one topic that we actually took a vote on, and that was related to actually the CDBG program. We appointed someone to be our representative to the advisory council for the county. Okay, just to remember what all that is. Okay.
Okay, letter C.
Oh, I don't think we voted on it yet,
I'm
though.
sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter C, approval of minutes, May 30th, 2018. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the May 30th, 2018 special meeting as presented.
Mayor, this is going to have to wait because we do not have the third.
We don't have
member
all
who
the
could vote on this.
participants from that
You were
meeting
not
are here.
So this will have to wait until our next meeting.
Noted.
Do I have a motion to table?
Do we have a motion to table?
So moved. Second.
We can vote on the tabling?
Yes, you may.
All those in favor?
Even if you weren't there, you
Aye.
can vote on the table.
All those in
Aye.
favor? Opposed?
Alrighty.
Letter D, approval of voucher detail June 6, 2018. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated June 6, 2018, the amount of $693,813.70. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the board? Sir, yes.
Yeah, we had a lot of, about $300,000 of that was capital expenditures, and I believe, I find it here. It's escaping me, but I believe it was a capital work that was done for infrastructure. So otherwise, nothing startling.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Letter E, small claims tax refunds 2018 Village of Ossining tax roll. Whereas small claims assessment review, SCAR tax proceedings were instituted against the town of Ossining by certain Village of Ossining taxpayers as set forth hereinafter petitioners seeking a review of the 2017 town of Ossining tax assessment of their property located in the Village of Ossining as that Town of Ossining assessment roll affects the 2018 tax roll of the Village of Ossining, and whereas the Village of Ossining ceased being tax assessing unit in 1989 and now adopts the Town of Ossining assessment roll for the Village of Ossining as prepared by the assessor of the Town of Ossining for all subsequent years, and whereas stipulation of settlement were entered into between the petitioners and the tax assessor of the Town of Ossining correcting, fixing, and reducing the assessment valuation of the aforesaid real property and the improvements situate thereon of petitioners, which stipulation was so ordered by the judicial hearing officer reviewing such matter, and which reduction is assessed value is set forth below. And whereas the aforesaid stipulation as ordered provides, among other things, that the tax assessment for the year 2017 for the subject premises by reduced as stated below, and that such assessment roll be corrected to reflect the reduction in assessment, and that a refund of the taxes paid on the amount of the reduction of the assessment be made to the petitioners. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby authorizes and directs the village treasurer to correct and adjust the tax roll of the Village of Ossining for 2017 in a total amount of $2,179.60 to reflect the reductions in assessment as enumerated below, and that a refund of the taxes be paid as stated therein be made. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the board. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Continuing business of the board.
We have none.
New business of the board.
We have none.
Visitor recognition. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board?
Please join us.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor, and to the village trustees and staff. Again, my name is Marlene Cheatham, and I reside in the Village of Ossining on Spring Street. I came, I know earlier with the public hearing, there was a lot of mixed comments about the affordable housing and ETPA kind of mixed together, but I know that ETPA was not part of that public hearing, but I do want to address the fact that as a trustee, and looking back in history, the ETP, this is not the first time the board or the village has had to deal with ETPA. They have come numerous times before, most notably when there's a change of administration or someone sitting in the mayor's seat. They do come back and forth to the Village of Ossining with looking for Ossining to join the ETPA legislation. I would press upon the board to look back in history and decide that and figure out like why the prior boards did not adopt ETPA in Ossining. And most notably, it's based upon some of the same things that were found in the recent study that was done that this board, spent money for, and the list of things that came out of that needed to be done before we could even look at ETPA in the Village of Ossining. Looking at the set-aside, looking at present issues, looking at our housing stock, looking at transportation. There was a number of things that they impressed upon every single board that had to be done, including looking at our landlord-tenant council. And I can say when I first started on the board, we did have a landlord-tenant council on the books. A couple of the members were no longer living. A couple of the members were no longer living in Ossining. So to reenact that board was very important to us, and to have that board up and running was one of our main concerns. And to have it started, and it was running well. I'm not sure where it is now, but it was actually getting its feet wet. And I think to keep that moving forward be of utmost importance at this time, because the people that really need the help in the village currently, including some of the people that were here today talking about their issues with their rents going up, are not going to be part of that ETPA legislation. They will not be covered by their rent going up 10, 12, 15, and 20%. And that has happened with one or a couple of the landlords in the Village of Ossining. And I would press upon you to look at that first, because those people are being impacted now, and the legislation will not help them.
I would just like to comment on a couple of the items that were raised by Ms. Cheatham because they're relevant to our general discussions about housing. The Landlord-Tenant Relations Council is very much reconstituted and strengthened, fortified with subpoena power, support from Deputy Corporation Counsel at their meetings regularly, support from village staff, access to our staff from the building department and from Section 8, and they're meeting monthly, and I understand that there are one of the particularly valuable assets that the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council provides is mediation when there's concerns from landlords and tenants, and they met tonight, correct?
They had one person they saw tonight, and I believe there are currently 5 or 6 pending matters before the LTRC.
Where they actually will provide a forum to invite both the landlord
Yes.
and the tenant to come together and speak with village staff, including legal counsel, to work through what some of these questionable, these concerns are that
Yes.
have been raised, whether it's rent or housing conditions. And that's for anyone, whether it's a ETPA eligible building, affordable unit, whatever it is. Yes, we're all very pleased to have that moving forward, and updating our Landlord-Tenant Relations Council and strengthening it has been a real focus, even before the housing needs assessment came out, because it took some time to review it, and there was a whole subcommittee that Trustee Bazemore and Trustee Levin headed up for us, working with the legal department. We're very pleased that is now, it really just got started at the beginning of this year. It's fully constituted, and they're meeting regularly and really moving forward with some good work. And perhaps we can incorporate an update from a member or two of the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council in an upcoming meeting to give us a more in-depth update of what's going on there. Thank you. Any other visitors that would like to be recognized? All righty. Madam Clerk.
Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you very much for joining us. Next week, I just want to call attention to the fact that it is a very special Wednesday. We're going to be in a different location and starting slightly earlier. We're going to be at the Ossining Public Library in the Bedars Theater starting at 7 o'clock p.m. and it will be a community meeting to present what are going to be the proposed grants that we'll be applying for from the Community Development Block Grants, and we are newly now reestablished as members of a consortium of municipalities that will be able to access this community development block grant funding. And part of that process is that we need to tell the public what it is we're interested in applying for grants on. And we want to hear from you if you think those are good ideas, if you have questions or concerns about them. And then the application process continues through the end of the month. And so I look forward to being able to bring those presentations and hear the presentations from the other public and nonprofit entities in our community that are going to be looking to access that money and bringing some of that grant money right here into our community. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week at the Ossining Public Library at 7 p.m. Meeting is adjourned.